consistent with the fate suffered by the Shadow Woman, regardless of any other light sources in the room. If the lamps are shut off at the end of a standard 6-month cycle, they can be remotely activated to immediately end the danger and begin a new cycle. If the lamp ceases operating for any other reason, Chamber 52 will remain dangerous and must remain sealed for at least 30 days, regardless of the status of SCP-205 itself. During a dangerous phase, any equipment in the room is often ransacked. But although SCP-205 itself has sometimes been moved, the lamps are never damaged. On 2 occasions, data expunged were carved into the walls. This strongly implies that data expunged, displaying an awareness of current containment procedures. Overview of SCP-205's life cycle. For the first month of operation, SCP-205 will display a still image of one woman in a provocative pose. Although variances have been noted in the pose and clothing of the woman, the individual displayed appears to be distinct and consistent through all cycles. During the last week of the first month, the shadow will begin to move slightly, as if the individual is shifting her weight or becoming uncomfortable. Her hair and clothing will be observed to flutter in ways that do not correspond to any movement of the atmosphere within Chamber 52. By the end of the first calendar month, the shadow will break her pose and spend the next 80 hours moving through a series of poses that imply a photography session complete with clothing changes and short breaks, sometimes including a meal. After this session is over, the shadow will consistently be in motion for the next 5 months, displaying a pantomime of the last days of a young model's life before she is brutally murdered at the end of the cycle. The shadow of the woman never moves beyond the boundaries of the projection screen. The shadows of objects that the woman appears to be interacting with do not appear unless they are being picked up or carried, and with the exception of the final month of the cycle, any other individuals that the shadow appears to be interacting with are not seen. Although the cycle is slightly different each time, certain consistencies are observed. The individual portrayed appears to have taken up photography as a hobby, in addition to being a fashion model. Her behavior implies a great deal of social interaction through, although with a lack of intimacy and behavior that indicates living alone, rather than with a family or a partner. One implied sexual encounter with an consistent through all observed viewings of the SCP-205 cycle. After this event, explicit sexual encounters will begin between the woman and one of the figures, increasing in intensity and frequency until the end of the third week. During the final week of the month, the woman appears to develop the film in her camera for the first time since photographing the horned shadows. Her reaction to the photographs is one of shock and horror, and her movements afterwards suggest that she attempted to flee and seek shelter behind a locked door, presumably in her home. There, she is encountered by multiple instances of the horned shadow figure, which assault her repeatedly for the remainder of the week. It is strongly implied that she is killed during this process, although the assault will continue until the end of the cycle. On the last day of the cycle, one of the horned shadows begins to grow larger in a manner suggesting that the figure casting it is approaching the SCP-205 lamps directly. It will eventually overcast all other shadows, and at this time both lamps will be physically turned off, regardless of any modifications made to prevent a halt in operation. Addendum: SCP-205-1 has been in the Foundation's possession since redacted. SCP-205-2 is identical in every way, including the serial number. It was discovered in a ransacked motel room in redacted on redacted. No sign of identity or whereabouts of the occupant have been found, although a camera similar to the one displayed in the 6th month of the SCP-205 life cycle was also recovered. Most of the contained film was ruined by exposure. See attached photo for the one image that was developed from the camera. Incident 205-76B. On the 28th of October, redacted, SCP-205-2's bulb burned out. Researcher, expunged, was sent into Chamber 52 to replace the bulb during one of the climactic assaults. Upon opening of Chamber 52's door, all horned shadow figures within view cease their activity and turns towards the door. Researcher, expunged, resealed the chamber and refused to enter to perform maintenance. Shadow figures did not resume their usual activity for approximately 3 hours. Incident 205-77A. On the 28th of April, redacted, SCP-205-2's bulb exploded. Shadow figures all ceased activity and looked towards the chamber door. No staff were dispatched to replace the bulb.